Oh, hi. So it's been a while, hasn't it? Hasn't been a lot of videos. Got about halfway through the Forever Night-a-thon, and it just stopped being fun. And every time I looked at it and wanted to keep going, it just felt like such an insurmountable task. And I just got the itch. I want to make videos, and I don't want to have to do that. So here's the new deal. Here's how that's going to work from now on. Each year, we're going to do half of a season moving forward because that's more manageable. And frankly, it makes the tradition a bit specialer because it makes it last a bit longer. There's only 3 seasons of Forever Night, so I'll get back to that at the beginning of the new year. But for now, I'm just going to make videos about stinky little horror movies for you. And I think this is the right decision. I'm thinking it's a good idea. Thank you. Without further ado, here is a video. Okay, I've done everything you asked. Now let Bobby Duke go. I need to talk about 28 Years Later. It's not something I want to talk about. I have takes, and you're going to be mad at me. No, this is something I just simply have to discuss. Bottom line for you, unless you're the type of person who shares my morbid fascination with movies going completely off the fucking rails, 28 Years Later is not worth your time. It's not worth your money either way, because it's not a movie. It's a third of a movie that is being passed off as a whole movie. It should rightly be called 28 Years Later Part 1. That would be a far more honest title. What you're getting, if you buy a ticket to this, which you shouldn't, is an incomplete work that does not stand on its own, and based on some choices made within it, I find difficult to believe will be much improved by the remaining 2 parts. There's a lot to like about it, to be sure, don't get me wrong. The performances, for example, are outstanding across the board. Alfie Jones and Ralph Fiennes are particular standouts, but there's really not a bad performance in the whole movie, with one notable exception, which I'll get to in the spoiler section. It looks gorgeous most of the time, but with some exceptions, and there are some genuinely beautiful shots. So those are some good things about it. On the whole, though, I can't help but feel a little cheated, both of my hard-earned cashish and, more importantly, my emotional investment in the story and characters. I walked out of this movie genuinely wondering if it was a prank played on me. And I know that sounds harsh, but I'm still not 100% sure that wasn't them just taking the piss. 28 Years Later follows Spike, a boy on the cusp of adolescence who's grown up in an idyllic island community of survivors in Scotland after it, and the rest of the UK, were ravaged by the rage virus in the first film and quarantined from the rest of the world, leaving them to fend for themselves. And if you've not seen 28 Days Later, all you really need to know is that there's a highly communicable bloodborne disease called the rage virus that turns people into, for all intents and purposes, pissed off zombies. Spike's mother is stricken with a mysterious illness, a different mysterious illness, and he chooses to leave the safety of that community to seek out the help of an eccentric doctor on the mainland. Now, describing the story of this movie, or rather the third of it we get, is pointless. It's not a literal film, both in the sense that it's literally not a film, but also that it's just, kind of takes place in this delirious haze, where the logic and character motivations are sometimes deliberately murky, sometimes they're withheld to build excitement, and sometimes they're just not really that well thought out. Where 28 Days Later was an exercise in gritty methodical realism, this is more of a dark fantasy story. It exists more in the realm of allegory, and I don't hate that choice. It's not what I expected, but I always appreciate when sequels take tonal shifts from their source material. I wish that it paid off. 28 Years Later is so unbelievably self-serious, so self-congratulatory, and so goddamn embarrassing whenever it tries to be stylish that it just falls apart under its own weight. No doubt, you have heard, the most publicized thing about this movie, there's a lot of hang and dong in it. And that's true. All of the rage zombies, and in this movie they very much are zombies, they have abandoned the pretense that they were ever otherwise. Now they chase you down and eat your ass, Alex Jones style.
I'll eat your ass.
They're fully nude for the whole movie. And that's a very silly choice, I think. I get it, right? The zombies are animalistic. They've returned to a sort of animal-like state of nature. The zombies all live in the forest in this movie. The humans hunt them with bows and arrows. They're animals now. Sure. I mean, the rage virus was created in a laboratory, so they're returning to a state of nature based on something artificial, which kind of makes the analogy fall apart if you pay too much attention, but it doesn't make the analogy harder to read. They're pack animals, in fact, because the hordes are led by alpha zombies who have the biggest, swingingest hogs of them all. Now, you might be thinking what I'm saying is a joke, but no. When I say that the film gives the big alpha zombie a huge prosthetic hog, that is merely a statement of fact. That's what they do. It would be journalistically irresponsible for me to say otherwise. And I mention this for two reasons. Firstly, if I didn't, it would be the only thing the comment section was about. And two, because there will no doubt be some very tiresome people who claim that I didn't get the satire of 28 years later, and I did. That's the level of bluntness this film operates on, the big dong alpha zombie level of bluntness. Like, I got it. Zombies are divided into discrete tiers, each of which has its own characteristics and abilities. There are big fat zombies that crawl pathetically on the ground and eat worms, not unlike so many Babadooks. There are regular zombies that run around, and then there are alpha zombies who seem to exclusively like ripping heads off of things. That's their compulsion. They love specifically to rip off heads. That's their thing. It's like pickleball for them. They're really into it. So like all of the zombies are structured like video game enemies, and every time one of them shows up, you know just by looking at it, its moveset and its weaknesses. The big ones rip your head off if you get close, so your build needs to have some ranged attacks. And I hate this shit. I hate it. It sucks so bad. Like it can't be just that you see a fat zombie crawling on the ground, and that's just an interesting creature, an unexpected way that this illness has manifested in this one person. Because that, in and of itself, right, like it's a striking and haunting image. Nor can like a big muscly zombie just be a big scary zombie who is scarier because he's big and muscly. It's inherently scary. You don't need to explain it. No, it's always a simple and easy to understand pattern that expands the lore. It's world building at the expense of that world being even slightly interesting or textured even a little bit. Instead of the characters discovering a big giant zombie with all the powers granted to him by having such a huge hog, they already know about that. They know all of the powers and limitations of the hog zombie right away. Because the rage virus, you see, it acts like steroids for some people. It not only pisses them off, it makes them big muscle monsters. And that information is handed to us in a piece of expository dialogue. Like Spike says, Dad says it acts like steroids for some people. My accent is incredible, I know. But I don't know what steroids are. All of the dialogue in the movie is like that. It's George Lucas level shit. Because if he doesn't know what steroids are, how does he know that clarifies the issue? Like, how would he know that this serves as an explanation for why zombies are stronger? But he does not realize that's what steroids do, just from the context clues of it. Doesn't matter, fuck you, don't think it through, don't assume these characters have internal lives of any kind. They're not speaking to one another, they're speaking to the camera. Glad it's explained though, because otherwise it might have been mysterious and frightening, which you wouldn't want in a horror movie. Because now if you see one of those guys, and you see their huge hog, you know that it's about to be a boss encounter. You got to save up your arrows for that one because it takes more arrows to kill one of those. There's also a line of expository George Lucas-ass dialogue about that, don't worry, where they say it takes a lot of arrows to take them down. And why? Why would it? It's not like if someone is very muscled, you can shoot them and that doesn't kill them. The movie takes great pains to firmly establish that the survivors trained specifically to shoot the zombies in the heart and throat. And also, it's very hard to do that because the zombies move fast, right? So it's always a threat, right? But if you don't hit one of those two areas, you can't get a kill shot, right? So like the heart, I will grant you that one. Like the big muscles of the chest and maybe the added bone density from all the hog muscles make it really hard to hit the heart on a big hog zombie, right? But the throat, surely, is the same. The only reason that line of dialogue exists is to preempt the question of why not just shoot the alpha and be done with it? A question nobody would have asked because the alpha is like portrayed as smarter and stronger than the rest of the zombos. You understand that you don't have time to carefully line up a shot while it and its hog are chasing you. It actively makes the movie worse to sit and explain this. I know I'm contradicting myself here. Like I'm criticizing the logic of the film when I've already said like it's not that kind of movie, right? It would be one thing if we were meant to just accept that like the logic is kind of flimsy and murky and go with it, right? But the movie keeps stopping dead in its tracks to explain things to you, often things which neither require nor benefit from an explanation. And sometimes that explanation comes after the audience has already been shown the information already. Because like The movie does not trust you one goddamn bit to follow anything that's going on. Like, the rules and lore are so explicit, so spelled out, that it really draws attention to everything that doesn't make any sense about them. Not in a, we're deliberately frustrating your expectations to make a point kind of way, but in a, shut up, nerd, you weren't supposed to notice that kind of way. And I could forgive a superficial problem like that. I could forgive the clumsy exposition. I could even forgive paying full price for 1/3 of a movie, if I felt even the slightest confidence that the story were going somewhere interesting. Indeed, a lot of themes are set up in 28 Years Later and could possibly pay off in future installments, but quite honestly, none of them are all that interesting or well thought out. Like, there are very feeble attempts made to question the nature of violence as spectacle. The first act and last 5 minutes of the film in particular are all about the ways that violence, even when it is necessary, should never be something one comes to enjoy, that violence is inherently dehumanizing. When you think about it, it's kind of like the rage virus. Spike's father is glib whenever Spike is made to kill a zombie, and it's treated as like this coming of age thing, right? Like, that's how you become a man, is killing and violence. It's a very basic textual example of toxic masculinity that only exists within the film for you to deconstruct. It's not unlike, for example, like if the biggest, most violent male with, say, the biggest swinginest hog was the alpha, the leader, the most manly, makes you think, maybe there's more to being a man than doing violence, huh? Deep stuff. I can see how I would have missed the satire here. And boy howdy, his dad has all this unresolved trauma that makes him abusive to his kind-hearted son who wants to break this cycle of violence. Not like the kind-hearted Dr. Kelson, who turns directly to the camera and says, the infected and non-infected are very similar, in case you didn't get it, in case you're a big moron confused by all the flashing lights and loud sounds, too unsophisticated to grasp that violence, you see, is a bad thing, that it's bad to enjoy violence, even violence which is unavoidable and necessary. Fine, okay, sure, good point, I guess. That's true. Not exactly novel, not exactly breaking new ground, but sure. I may find the execution lacking, but the message is still one I broadly agree with. Now ask yourself, what is the most obvious problem one might run into trying to depict this message? What is the simplest, most obvious trap a filmmaker might fall into in their action sci-fi horror movie about how violence as spectacle is dehumanizing? Think about it for even 1 second. The movie, of course, tries to make its own violence very stylish and cool. There are multiple shots in this movie where they do a sort of choppy, stylized version of bullet time, and holy shit, it looks so bad. It is so fucking bad. It's like McG guest directed those shots. It's fucking embarrassing. And I know that the reason it looks like the utter shit is because of the much publicized rig of iPhones they used, which I guess harkens back to the way that the original movie was shot on shitty looking digital cameras in a kind of experimental way. But that actually lent the original movie a visual identity, and this just draws attention to how much this movie lacks one. It was definitely meant to look cool, and it wasn't. It was jaw-droppingly uncool. It's hard to believe it isn't intended as a joke, and I'm sure some people will try to tell me that it was meant as a joke, but I don't believe that to be the case. Now, if we put on our media literacy hats, right, this movie could be trying to do one of two things, right? Either the movie is trying to say, oh, look at you, you enjoyed this violent spectacle, didn't you? Doesn't that say something fucked up about you, Spec Ops the Line? Or, what I think is more likely to be the case, they wanted to make their violence look badass and cool for the entertainment value of it, and they either didn't really care or didn't consider that it contradicted the themes that they were setting up. And honestly, that too would be fine. I don't mind a bit of empty spectacle. It can't be your entire cinematic diet, but it's a nice little bit of junk food every now and then, sure. I don't even really mind if a piece of empty spectacle has pretensions of being about something more important. I don't mind a big swing, hog or regular. But like, to do both empty spectacle and social commentary this badly in ways which directly contradict one another, yeah, it's truly remarkable. I cannot convey the depths of failure on display. It's trying to establish a very well-trodden theme in this genre, how gratification from violence is dehumanizing. Doing that in the most rote, by-the-numbers way, reinforcing it in the most blunt, didactic terms imaginable, contradicting itself by trying to make its own violence gratifying, and also failing to do that. It's trying to have it both ways, but doesn't understand what's interesting about either. It's neither having its cake nor eating it. To give you an idea of how poorly handled this movie's action is, how much it lacks intention, I watched this movie with my wife, who is not at all desensitized to horror, right? The weekend prior, we watched Final Destination Bloodlines, and she found that really scary, right? It doesn't take a lot to scare her in these kinds of movies, is my point. She's not used to all the tricks that horror movies use to frighten you, like fans of the genre might be. And at the end of this one, she turned to me and said, "Well, that wasn't really a horror movie, was it?" Now, I don't agree with that assessment. I think it is a horror movie, but I take the point she meant, which is that that shit weren't scary. That shit was weak. Some of the blandest shit I have seen in a long time, and I like Marvel movies. I have a very high tolerance for blandness. But forget all of that, though. That's not what's important, right? Let's talk thematics, right? Let's get down and dirty in the thematic guts of this shit, right? Because, like, if I'm being real with you, I don't think 28 Days Later should have sequels. The whole point of that movie, the whole idea, is that the bad times don't last, that you don't let the bad times harden you and make you cynical, that we have to stand together when times get tough, and if we do that, we will then make it to the other side. Selena tells Jim she won't hesitate to kill him if he becomes a liability, and then they only survive in the end because she specifically hesitates to kill him when she thinks he might be a liability. She makes the more dangerous choice out of love and care, and because of that choice, they get a happy ending where all of the zombies starve to death and the sun rises and they get rescued. Now, that doesn't matter. Now the infection never ends and the UK is left to rot, quarantined from the rest of the world with no hope of normalcy or escape. And maybe that's some sort of commentary on how we're never going back to normal from COVID, but I don't think we need to retroactively capitulate to nihilistic despair in order to make that point. Nor do I think they're trying to make that point in the first place, because that would have been an interesting thing to do. Also, you can't tell me that this zombie isn't meant to be Jim. I know the director says it isn't, but come the fuck on. Hey, you know how the main characters survived by sticking together and having solidarity for one another? Fuck you, they died off screen for a cheeky joke. Fuck you, nothing means anything, there is no hope. Even the central conceit of this franchise is bent in the attempt to make this story work. In the first movie, these very much weren't zombies. The virus just made them extremely angry and mindless. They didn't eat people, they didn't do anything to survive, they just wanted to beat the shit out of you. That's why they all starved to death at the end of the movie. They didn't care about eating. They were all aggression, no forethought. Come here. Let me let you in on a little secret, right? Because it's kind of like how people react to bad situations with fear and hostility. The whole point is you shouldn't do that. That's the allegory. Now they're just zombies. They eat whatever they kill. That's their thing.
I will eat your ass.
The only time we see anyone get turned in the movie is after being bitten, like how Zombies does. Hey, remember in the first movie when Mark gets a drop of blood in his eye because like a crow drops it or whatever, and then he has to give his goodbyes like immediately then and there, and it's this really sad, affecting scene where he just dies, and it's sad, and how that's just it for him. Right? Through no fault of his own, how communicable this disease was, how the slightest bit of contamination turned you within seconds, how the characters were always at risk no matter how careful they were being because the slightest mistake or freak accident would immediately cost them everything, how that fostered a sense of paranoia and brought out people's worst impulses. Boy, don't you think that the fact that this disease is highly communicable might hit harder now when we're all living in the middle of a plague that is also highly communicable. Fertile ground for storytelling, wouldn't you agree? Be a shame not to do anything with that. Characters in this movie walk around without any sort of protection from infection. They handle bloody zombie bits without gloves, and they don't wear goggles, and they don't wear masks. Now, I don't think you have to have the characters walking around in masks, but like, you kind of have to remark on it. You're telling me that after 28 years of this shit, 28 years of living with the reality that if they get even the slightest bit of contamination, they die within moments, everybody's just that cavalier. Okay, fine. Do you have a point to make about that? Are you at least saying something about the ways that people are cavalier about dangerous infectious diseases once they become normalized? How people get complacent and slack on precautionary measures over time? No? Nobody ever gets turned from this carelessness? It's completely unremarked upon? Boy, that feels like a real boring choice. The result is that the virus feels like less of a threat now, and do you see how it shouldn't? Do you see how 5 years of living through an infectious plague should prime me to be more afraid of this fictional infectious plague, and the legwork the movie put in, for some reason, to make me less afraid, to make itself less compelling, to drain the tension from the whole thing without adding anything to justify that choice? Because at every turn, this movie swerves to make the least interesting choices. Like, they go so far as to undo interesting choices that they inherit from the previous movie. There's a scene in this movie not to spoil anything, but a character wakes up and finds a dead zombie sitting next to them, and they don't know how it happened. And for a second, you're like, oh, who did that? How did that happen? And then, no joke, like 10 seconds later, they do a flashback to when that happened. So you have this extremely interesting mystery that's really compelling for like a few seconds. And then they just tell you. Why even set it up? Like, why make us wonder this if you're just going to explain it? Why? Like, what? Well, you could have made us really interested in this question. It's so boring in a way that it absolutely does not need to be. So much of the movie is like that. It's so close to being interesting without ever actually getting there. But there is one notable exception. There's one moment where the film becomes temporarily, jarringly interesting. Not good, not even better, much worse in fact, but interesting, undeniably interesting. So I have to get into spoilers from here on out. And if you care about being spoiled, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Because if you're going to see this movie, if you must do so, despite everything I've said thus far, I would never in a million years want to spoil what was, no joke, the most shocking thing I've ever seen a movie do. If you're still here and you haven't seen 28 Years Later, I want to emphasize that what I'm about to say, it's not a joke. You might think I'm making a joke, that this can't possibly be how the movie ends, but also the joke I'm making is in very poor taste. I'm not. Check Wikipedia if you don't believe me, because after 110 minutes of complete, unerring, po-faced sincerity, Spike is cornered by an approaching horde of zombies and is rescued at the last minute by a gang of thrill-killing psychopaths who fight with like cartoon ninjas, complete with bow staffs and backflips, and they are all dressed like notorious pedophile Jimmy Savile. And in case you didn't get it, their leader introduces himself as Jimmy, which the observant viewer might note is Jimmy Savile's name. It comes completely out of nowhere. There are little breadcrumbs throughout the movie, sure, that there is someone named Jimmy who is probably a fucked up kind of guy. Like they find someone who was left to die with the word Jimmy carved into him. There's graffiti with ominous messages about Jimmy in some places, maybe some other stuff I missed. But nowhere else in the movie, or within the bounds of common sense, has this kind of superhero-ass action took place. It's like a gang from the Warriors or some shit. It's not the type of movie where you would expect a backflip to happen. Like the rest of the movie is dead serious. And then there's this completely unexpected left turn in the last few minutes with the most unhinged, surreal, ridiculous sequence. Moments ago, we were watching a young boy grapple with the mortality of his cancer-stricken mother, and that was all treated with like sincere, realistic emotion, right? He's making peace with a cruel, indifferent world. And then the Jimmy Savile ninjas show up and do cool parkour backflips. And shut up. I get it. Shut up. Jimmy's a predator. I got that. I got that subtle messaging. He's a dangerous person who might appear cool to a child because he can do backflips, but he is in fact dangerous. Spike thinks he's come of age. He thinks he's been hardened by the world and its cruelties, and that leaves him at the particular mercy of this kind of predator. It's kind of like the messaging that his father set up is paying off in this way that makes him more susceptible to this type of predation. Like, I get it, right? I get it. Like, they were so worried you might not get it that they named this character Jimmy because they think you're stupid. They think everybody watching this is so fucking stupid. And maybe I am, because up until this sequence, I was still waiting to be told a story. I was still waiting for all these setups to go somewhere. I was still waiting for this to mean anything. But then the credits rolled. The movie was over. And I have never in my life felt so bewildered. I've never seen a movie have a punchline before. I would not trade that apeshit experience for anything. I will remember it until the day I die, when my last words will be, hey, remember how 28 Years Later ended? That show was crazy. But I can't pretend like it works in the movie's favor. I think it was intended to be funny, and I did laugh, but I wasn't laughing with them. I'm very much laughing at them. This is not a work of art I enjoyed. That in and of itself is not grounds for the level of harshness I've shown it today, because it is also a work of art I don't particularly respect. One cannot deny, however, that this movie, however you might feel about it, demands discussion. If you watch it and don't, you'll want to talk about it. That much I guarantee. This movie is going to polarize people for a long time, and there will no doubt be a breed of irritating pedant that insists it's secretly brilliant, that all of its shortcomings are, in fact, deliberate subversions of something or other. It's not, though. It's blunt, it's dull, and it vacillates between trying way too hard and not nearly hard enough. This is a first draft that somehow made it into theaters, And I would have liked to have seen the movie 28 revisions later. 10 swinging hogs out of 10. Highest possible recommendation. Film of the year. They should have called it 28 nominations later, because I smell Oscar buzz. Danny Boyle brings his zombie franchise back from the dead this summer. It's all the rage. Special thank you to all of my wet puppets over on Patreon. It's been a kind of tumultuous period for the channel, so I appreciate everyone sticking with me. In particular, I'd like to thank Wolfman Jack, Cooper Holmes, Joe McClory, Liz Widow, Gideon, Devin Kaler, and Andrew Roger. And I, Bobby Duke, star of the hostage crisis earlier, would like to thank Kato Moore, Rachel Rat, Carpad, Josh Manes, and Hyla Tracy. I don't co-sign all of Mildo's views on this film, by the way. You can get angry at them. I thought it was mid at worst. I don't know. Sometimes I think they just said stuff on account of they want to look like they're talking smart like. I'm calling Mildo pretentious over here.